Welcome to Global Focus today. I am your host today, Laura Brzezinski, standing in for uh, Reverend Dr. Sharri McMurray. She's having computer challenges. So I welcome you. And here on this show, Sharri explores the emerging new thought spiritual leaders and the message that they are sharing out all across the globe. And today I have the privilege of speaking with and reintroducing you to, or introducing for the first time, if you haven't before, Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadliegh of Planned Happiness Institute. Welcome, Reverend Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here with you.
Good, good. Well, since you were on the last time, I think things have changed in your world. However, I would love for you, because I won't do it justice, give a brief introduction of yourself, your ministry, your background, and what lights you up about your ministry.
Oh my gosh. That is such a gigantic question.
It is.
So anyway, I mean, of course, I'm somewhat familiar here because I've been on the show and on New Thought. This ministry is very generous with inviting me on. I always appreciate being in here. So I just want to start by saying thank you, and I'm glad you're here with me today. So the journey. A very, 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 very short version of it because the long version is too long. And even though the long version is way more interesting for sure, but it's simply too long. But the short version is I am here and my ministry is made up of, and my books are created because of the life that I grew up having. And I did not have some kind of Pollyanna, middle class, white privileged life. White, yes, but none of the other things that come with that. I didn't come up in an educated family. I came up through an alcoholic family. I came up through a sexually abusive family. I came up through not having enough money and no education, and so my journey was about not allowing what was in my life to define me. And so I'm pretty normal. I'm a pretty normal person considering the amount of things that I had to challenge and I had to challenge inside of myself. So I show up here pretty normal, but when it comes to what my ministry is about, and I'm not going to let myself get emotional because that always distracts me, but I do feel so strongly about it's not about being just seen or famous. It's nothing like that. But I want to have the work that I do, which is forgiveness and shadow work. I do want it to get out to the masses because while spiritual metaphysicians are beautiful people, sometimes we don't do all of the deeper work, and yet we're still, we are a great community of individuals. But right outside, like if we're this particular circle, right outside this circle, right in our households, in our family, in our jobs, and with our neighbors, there are people who are out there kind of suffering, and that I use that word somewhat loosely, suffering because they don't know how to get out of the way of their own lives. They don't know how to not be identified by their pain, their stories, the conditions of their life, the conditions of the country, the conditions of their education. They don't know how to get out of their own minds. And so I am absolutely, completely dedicated to supporting as many people as I can to find freedom by transcending their conditions to the best of their ability. And so when I watch people apply the things that they learn from from the classes that I teach and from the books that I write, I see people make beautiful changes in their relationships, retrieving relationships with individuals that they have been what do you call it, distant from, sometimes for years, getting back in relationship with a son, with a daughter, finding peace with an ex-husband or an ex-wife, all of those things. And I don't know about you, Laura, but at the end of the day, what matters is, your family. That's really what matters, right? And how am I being in this family? And am I being someone that makes my family want to be around me? Because,
Simply put,
right? I mean, so yeah, that's kind of, I think that answers the question of what you asked me in a kind of a short way.
beautiful. And I heard you talk two powerful paths that I know they intersect, but they also are different. How would you talk about, and you can talk about them individually first and then how they intersect, but you said you talk about forgiveness and shadow work. So my question would be, what makes them different, and then how do they intersect?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about them separately, but yet they're just two different skill sets. And I'll just kind of hold up the cover of this book. This is the one that recently came out, published by St. Martin's Essentials, and I'm so grateful to them for getting this book out into the world, into Target and Barnes and Noble and other places like that. I'm so grateful. The thing about shadow work, believe it or not, it's simple if you choose to believe it. And the simplicity of it is this: if you buy into the concept, what you're doing is you're building, I always think about these as building emotional muscles. You're building the muscle that says, if I react to someone, someone outside me, if I react to you and I have some kind of weird reaction about the way you talk to me or you even look at me, right? You all know that. People, I mean, we all know that. People look at us one way, we think, oh, what did I do wrong? Or we think, what's wrong with them, right? We can go in either direction. The beauty of shadow work, when you really, really get it, is you begin to realize that the entire world that you're living exists right here. And so when you get the concepts, really practice and get the concepts, you're not going to take time fault finding or blaming or saying someone else is responsible. You'll take responsibility and look to see where that person lives within you, and what are you about to learn because you've engaged this individual. And so it's really simple, right? That sounds pretty simple. The tough part is learning how to get past the emotional reaction that so many of us have. We have to be able to get past that, like, instant like or dislike or the fear of. We have to recognize that those feelings are basically way showers, and that the people, if it were you, that you're not the problem. You're a placeholder for someplace inside of me, right? Because how could I not love you? But we do that. We find objection to people, even when there's no reason to. So shadow work is building that muscle and saying, I'm going to own my life, and I'm not placing responsibility for my life outside of myself ever again. And the rewards, I know we'll probably come back around to that because you wanted to ask me that. The reward is an oh my God life, freedom, and just relationships that are happier, that are lighter, that are softer. The rewards are enormous. They're enormous. That's shadow work. And again, I do have to tie them together. Forgiveness work is really when you open your eyes in the morning and you start thinking about people, and those of us who teach forgiveness, one of the things we all agree on is that if you're breathing, you have forgiveness work to do. You know, I mean, I have people that come into my classes all the time, and I know it's going to come. I know, bless them. I know they're going to say at some point, but I did this already. But I forgave my father, but I forgave my mother. Meanwhile, they're still suffering. They're still having questionable relationships. They're ignoring mom and dad, or they're trying to avoid them, or just lots of broken relationships in all different directions. And you see that especially during holidays, right? When we tolerate our relationships with people. Um, Boy, that is a holiday season is a great time to practice forgiveness and shadow work. And so when you're really practicing and you really build that muscle, the forgiveness muscle, what you are doing is once again, you're severing the connections, the painful connections between you and another. You are not just severing it, but you're canceling the pain. It's like you're canceling the pain between you and another person. And so that person's free to go do their thing. And if they have to take care of their own karmic debt, so be it. But you're free. You're free. The way they tie together, though, is fascinating, because when we do the shadow work, and you're looking at, let's go, keep using you as an example. Let's say, you said,
Go
please.
for it. Please do.
So let's say I have some, again, objectionable reaction to you. But once I'm practiced, I'm going to sit, I'm going to look inside, and I'm going to ask myself some questions. I'm going to especially wonder, what is alive in me that I think that, Laura's the problem. And then when I begin to look, if I'm really stay with the practice, I teach this thing called feel and follow, which means you sit in a meditative practice, you get in touch with the feeling without judging it, and you follow it deep down inside of yourself. And as you get quiet and you begin to look, and you go down to the earliest memory that exists, has the same feeling tone as, say, my reaction to you, what happens is there'll be another person there, because it's not you. You're not my problem. But you might have reminded me about an incident with a sister or my mother or somebody like that. So my job right then is to forgive that individual that clearly I was giving responsibility to, but also to forgive myself for suffering and for giving my power away. And so as soon as I do that, once again, severing the life-limiting energetic cords that have tied us together in pain. And forgiveness does that. And forgiveness at every turn does that. And then sometimes when you're doing forgiveness work, people love, oh, God bless the people I work with, especially in large groups. It's hard in a large group because there's so many, needs all at one time. But people are just avoiding their emotions at every turn. But what they don't get is that every time they avoid something or feeling or someone because it's hurtful, that's what starts to get pushed down and become a shadow. So we have to kind of do this balance of both at the same time. And that's how they come together, both shadow and forgiveness work.
It sounds like a lot of work, and it sounds like we ought to be doing this on a daily basis.
Great question. No, I mean, yes and no, but
Okay.
there's a lot of it's like going to school and getting a degree, right? You initially get a degree, and then as the years go on, depending on what kind of degree you have, often you're required to get continuing education units. Well, once you build them up, this is a great example. If I'm consistently challenged with a particular personality type, and I find this person in my house or in my job or in my ministry, and everywhere I look, I have someone with a particular, let's say someone who's really arrogant, that I'm challenged by people who are arrogant. And everywhere I look, I'm finding someone who's arrogant. Well, once I've done the healing work and I realize, oh, it wasn't that person or that person, it was in me because of back when, right? Once I build that muscle, and then all of a sudden, if I turn again and I see another person with that personality type, just because I've done the work, I can look at them and go, huh, well, there it is again. And I can actually get to the place where I choose not to pick it up. You see,
But
this
you still recognize.
you
But
might
it doesn't.
recognize it, or they stop being in your life.
Ah,
I've seen that over and over and over again. You heal a personality type that lives within you, and then they just stop showing up. It sounds like a lie, or it sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not. So if I completely heal where I have objected to or judged arrogant people, they just stop being around. It's fascinating how easily it actually happens. It's fascinating. Yeah. Does that make sense?
it does.
So it is initially, it is, but it gets lighter, 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 easier, easier, easier. And then you start living from choice. You just look and you go, yeah, I'm not loving that situation. I think I'll go over here. Without like strain, without running away, it becomes choice. Yeah.
A lot of awareness is what I'm hearing. Is that
Lots of awareness.
you gain awareness that happens,
Mhm.
that pause. I've heard that expression, the pause between something or something,
Mhm.
someone,
Mhm.
happens, and there's a moment between the response, right, and what's next. And so I'm just realizing there's comments over here. Sorry about that.
I can't see them, so
Oh, it's Wayne. Hello, Wayne. Nice to see you today. But yes, it's the practice and the pause that allows you to make the choice.
Mhm.
How am I going to respond? And is it just recognizing, oh, here we go again, have to work on this, or like you just said, choosing to walk away? That's powerful.
And there's one practice that underlies, um, well, that I in all the courses that I teach, in every course. Matter of fact, even when I work with people privately, um, it's learning to take on a practice of non-judgment. Because I only have to forgive you if I first judge you. So if I take on and because you're referring to awareness, right? And you're talking about creating the pause. Well, we create the pause when we do become very familiar with the mechanism of our mind. And so when I realize that, or when I take on the practice, and I've been doing this for years, and I still see myself go, oops, and where I'm judging somebody, it still happens, right? But oh my God, my mind is such a calmer place than what it used to be. It's so much calmer. It's a happy place for me to be,
Right.
where it wasn't always that way. It wasn't fun being me. Because when you're angry all the time and you're judging all the time and you're gossiping all the time and you're complaining all the time and you're feeling like a victim all the time, it's not good being in your own skin. And it wasn't good being in my own skin. Now I like being me, which is so lovely.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
it's really like a nice thing to like yourself. which is a luxury because I know that that's not always common. I know it's not.
It's not.
Mm.
And I will definitely say on my own personal journey, there were times where I did not like myself. I didn't like my behavior. I didn't like things I said or did, and didn't have the tools for a while. I'm like, why am I behaving this way? Why
Isn't
am
that
I
fascinating? You
doing
knew.
this?
You knew and you couldn't stop it. So you must have done something. Clearly, you must have done something since you're talking about it from the past. So, yeah, so maybe it's not this particular journey, but you found a different journey. And
But
that's a beautiful thing.
it's through all of it, through
Mhm.
forgiveness, being aware of judgment, particularly for me is the self judgment,
Mhm.
and diving deeper, right? As you said, judging yourself first and then out there,
Yeah.
and that was a big one to realize that, oh, I first of all didn't realize I had judgment, and once I realized I did of other people, then the third step was recognizing, as you said, it was in here of
Yeah.
me first. I went, wow, that's, and still working on it.
I don't know.
See it coming.
I was watching some stupid movie the other day. It was a really stupid movie. I don't remember what it was. It's Halloween season, so something, I don't know. And the person described their thinking at the moment that they were upset or they were angry or something. And they described it like having shards of glass inside their mind. I thought, yeah, that's what it feels like when you walk around angry and resentful and in pain. And yet when you heal it, then there's like this ease. You don't like everything all the time. You don't have to like everybody all the time. I don't even I mean, I still make mistakes, but I'm not quick to beat myself up anymore. That's and Ernest Holmes said, I think he said it, I don't know if it was in the textbooks or one of his other books. He said, speak kindly about yourself every day. Like if that's all we ever did was to speak kindly about ourselves, we would see a shift. We would.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, we would. Now, you mentioned a number of times books, classes. So I don't know if we've mentioned your Planned Happiness Institute, but what do you have upcoming? How can people get this work for themselves? How can they start helping themselves? How can we connect with you and your work?
Reverend Doctor. I'm
I love
really
that.
a doctor. I'm
Look at that.
playing. Well, right now we because the holidays, well, the truth is it's two things. The holidays are coming, so new classes, I'm not sure what's on there right now to start. However, um, in my home, we're dealing with a health crisis in my home. My husband just came down with a cancer diagnosis. So I'm putting a little bit of pause for myself. I have another teacher, and we'll talk about seeing what she might want to put on the calendar. But the fact is, at this moment, I'm putting a little bit of a pause. I'm traveling, I'm speaking other places, I'm doing workshops. Matter of fact, I spoke to your hubby about, getting out to Colorado and trying to do some stuff out there. So I am traveling around. If people get on my Michelle Watt or get on my Planned Happiness Institute site, they'll find where I'm going to be, and they'll find the scheduled places I'm going to be speaking. This week it's in New Jersey at my old center, and then I'm going up to Warwick, New York, to Colorado. Concordia Center for Spiritual Living. But I'll be down in Delaware. Like I am. I've been really traveling around. January courses will pick up again once we get past this initial time with my husband and the surgery and recovery time. And of course, we're going to be facing the holidays so a little bit of pause, but I promise get on my email list. Definitely get on the email list because we have regular classes all the time. Yes, definitely feel free to reach out to me. Absolutely.
Planned Happiness
Inst.com.
Institute.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Com.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Quick. Thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so just going back to, I heard you say you have 2 books
Well, I
or
actually
1.
I have more than 2, but everything up until now was self-published. My
Okay.
shadow book was published by, like I said, St. Martin's Essentials, and they have just asked me to. They want to publish my forgiveness book. So while it was out,
Congratulations.
what?
I said, "Congratulations."
I know it is. It's really kind of exciting. I gotta say, it's really kind of exciting, um, because it to give the world only one side of this without the other. And yes, there's so many shadow books, and there's so many forgiveness books, but I I teach in a way for the spiritual metaphysical community, not just religious scientists, but anybody, unity, divine science, anybody who's spiritual. I definitely speak to that part. And so next year around this time, my forgiveness book will be out also. Again, because right now it's not available on Amazon anymore.
Okay.
Um, but
But in the meantime, where could we find shadow work?
You can find it. Go on my website. You'll find it on michellewadliegh.com, on plantedhappinessinstitute.com, on Amazon, in Barnes& and Noble. Dear God, please buy it from Barnes& and Noble. Let them know that you want that book. And in January, it'll be in Targets all over the place,
Great.
which is so exciting. It also got published in Taiwanese, and it got published, which is like, what a odd and random, but it is, which is lovely. And it got published in Portuguese down in Brazil. So there's some other places also, if you live in those parts of the world, to get it. But Amazon is your easiest, although walk in the store, get it from Barnes and Noble for sure. Just
Yes.
because it's lovely, letting them see that the book is wanted.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Wonderful. So, um, what has been the biggest challenge for you getting your work out there on a personal level? Like for you personally to share all of this?
Believing in myself. Believing in myself, and and being a good being my own good champion, my own good cheerleader. um my husband's in my corner always, and I have lots of friends who keep cheering me on and doing such. But you don't come from never being an author to being published without having to grow the inner landscape of you, and without having, I mean, I had to become confident. I had to believe in myself. Who's going to want to read a book if the author is not in full practice, number one, and if I'm not feeling confident about it? And I'm happy to tell you I'm confident about it, because especially when I'm in classes, I'm always doing the work with my students, always doing the work. And so I'm having to grow, like I'm being pushed and prodded and poked way more than I would like to be, way more than I'd like to be. But it's the work, right? So this way I'm not just giving you a theory. I'm letting you know that I have healed within me and integrated parts of me that I had been rejecting for years. And thank God I've brought those parts home. And thank God I've forgiven so much that, does stuff come up? Yeah, but mostly I've done the work. I've done and continue to do the work. So
What is your vision? And figure out how to phrase this. What is your vision for your work out in the world on a global scale?
well, first, let's start from the inner circle. I'd like to
Okay.
see Centers for Spiritual Living use my books in training practitioners, because I speak our language. I'd like to have these books become required reading, that teachers, and I'd like to work with people to teach it. I'd like to see, because I'm not a psychologist, I speak in people language, normal people language. So my other desire is to get it into the secular world, into the hands of people who are, counselors and coaches and spiritual, not spiritual, and therapists who need to find ways to dumb down their language, because sometimes their language is so high that a common person can't explain it. Well, I have found very easy ways to explain it. So I want to get it into the secular world. I'd love to work with organizations, larger organizations, especially nonprofits that are trying to do real good, good in the world. And because personality stuff comes in, oh my God, personality stuff gets in the way. So I'd love to be a support to help people, to help organizations where personality issues are interrupting the good that they're doing, because it happens all the time. So that's and just out there, out there, out there. That's really a big part of the vision right now.
Well, and that's the act of getting it out. But what is your vision for the result? Your work is out there. What do you want to see?
People not blaming each other. People healing their inner racism, their conscious and unconscious racism. People healing their homophobia. People healing or being able to live with less fear in their lives. Because in order for fear to exist, we have to really have a lot going on inside. And when you do this kind of work, you get to heal a lot of fears, healthier relationships. People knew, it's funny. At one point I thought, oh, are the upcoming generations going to need this? Because there's a lot of ballsy young Gen Zers that are out there changing the world. But I've also had opportunity to see, yep, they're still carrying messages. They still are. So even supporting individuals that want to make a difference in the world, so that they're carrying joy into the world instead of carrying pain and suffering. Having religious and spiritual leaders become more whole, because there's a lot of stuff out there. I'm part of an organization that does a lot of looking at ethics in spiritual leaders, and there's a major concern for how much many spiritual leaders take advantage. There's a lot of pain that spiritual leaders have caused. And I'm really being very general here, because I don't want to pick on anybody, any religion whatsoever. But wouldn't it be great if we actually could all boats rise when we rise, right? To have all boats rise together, so that even while we're not in agreement, that we're not hating each other.
Yes.
To create, people talk about working on peace. Well, I don't know how you work on peace without working on first getting to peace here. To me, getting to peace here is the work that I'm talking about. And then peace is the reward. Freedom is the reward. Having conversations at the international level, so that we can stop hating on each other. If some of the stuff that's happening in the world right now, it's unchecked hate. It's unchecked resistance to each other. It's painful stuff that's going on out there. So it would be lovely to see it actually impact the globe. That sounds so big. I think that's why I usually use those.
But we have to have big visions, big dreams. But it's peace in the world, everywhere, starting within, so that we see it without. Is what I heard from that. And beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
So to wrap up, Reverend Sharri has 5 questions that she loves to ask. So the first one, is there anything you want our viewers to know about you that I haven't already asked or you haven't already shared?
That you haven't asked and I haven't shared. I don't know if it hasn't come through. The only thing I would want the audience to know is I'm very sincere about this work. I'm very devoted. First, I'm devoted to family. My grandchildren, my sons, my husband, and depending on who needs me when. So first it's family. But then I'm here to be available to the planet. I mean, wherever that is, it's very real. I'm very sincere about getting this work out there. And I love to work privately, by the way. I do coaching, private coaching. So that's also another option.
Beautiful. And how does what you do generate or support conscious evolution? Now, I know you've already answered this, but in
Yeah.
a succinct way.
Yeah. When we heal ourselves as individuals, the consciousness shifts and then, consciousness is shifted everywhere. Yeah.
Yes. And we've also touched on this. How does what you do generate or support world peace?
Oh,
And
yeah.
we just did that.
Yep.
Peace everywhere. And I love it because it's peace within. And then in our, as you described, our closest circle. And then it just keeps rippling out.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so,
how do we create peace in the world if we're angry?
right.
We got to clean up us. We got to clean up us first.
Each person accepting responsibility for
Yeah.
their own life, their sphere, their peace, their joy, all of it, their
Yeah.
health and happiness. And then if everything goes exactly as desired, what does your ministry look like 10 years from now?
Oh, great question. Many more books. There's already a kind of conversation about a third book with this company. And so my spiritual teacher died with her book in her. I'm happy that I haven't, but I want to do more than that. I want to leave a legacy of encouraging people to learn how to love and forgive themselves. And so 10 years from now, it would be an organization of people who are doing this, not just me, many teachers, many coaches doing this work, bringing it out into the world, bringing it into classrooms, bringing it to children, bringing it into hospitals, bringing it into mental health organizations. That's what it will look like 10 years from now.
Beautiful. A legacy of love and forgiveness and peace.
Yeah.
Peace in the world. Peace in the world. We can. It may not be everywhere in every nook and cranny in our lifetime, and yet you are affecting peace in the world. How beautiful. And then Reverend Sherry's favorite question, will you come back?
Of course. It's so funny because we booked this so long ago, I forgot about it. And then I like literally like maybe a year ago. So yes, Dr. Sherry, I'll be happy to come back.
Well, perfect. And I think it sounds like the perfect time. It's October 14th of 2025. So just about a year from now, when your next book is
Yeah,
either come out or about to come out. So that'll be perfect timing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she's watching, but I will let her know that you said yes. So to everyone else that's watching, you can connect with Reverend Michelle, revjerseygirl@gmail.com. You can find her books, plannedhappinessinstitute.com, and there is more coming. But in the meantime, get shadow work and start doing your own work.
Just show it one. Isn't it a great cover?
It is. It feels good too.
Pretty color.
Yeah, I haven't dived in personally, but there is a copy in our house, and I'm second in line. But maybe my husband, Reverend Robert, and we can do it together. I don't know. It might be scary.
Although that's a good thing to do. You guys are smart enough. You'll know how to do it. Yeah.
I don't know if we're brave enough, Michelle.
I don't know. I don't know you as well as I know your husband, but I think you are. I think you are.
All right.
Thank you for
Well,
having
thank
me.
you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing the gift of who you are and getting your work out into the world. It
Thank you.
is so needed. So to everyone watching, we'll see you again next time. Thanks so much for joining while I find my way out.
Thank
Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing